Hello, this is Mike Cattermole of At the Races and Channel 4 Racing, looking ahead to the opening day of Royal Ascot 2009 for Stan James. The opening day of Royal Ascot is my personal favourite. Truly outstanding racing, opening up with 3 Group 1s in a row and with a promise of so much more to come later in the week. It all starts with the Queen Anne Stakes, a race in which Saïd bin Suroor and Godolphin have found on 7 previous occasions. They've 2 entries, Gladiatorus, who's recently joined them after his amazing front-running win in the Dubai duty-free from Pressers, of course, and Alexandros. How surprising to see that Ahmed Ashtabi, the Dubai apprentice, keeps the ride on Gladiatorus, now rated in some quarters as the best turf horse in the world, at the expense of the stable jockey and 40-time Ascot winner Frankie Dettori. Indeed, the world's most famous jockey finds himself instead on the supposed second string, who was touched off by Virtual in the Lock-in Stakes at Newbury after Dettori had had his whip knocked out of his hand in the closing stages. Now, if Gladiatorus is in the same sort of form as he was in Dubai, he ought to make all and take all the beating. But the form of the Godolphin team leaves much to be desired at present, and recent recruit Eastern Anthem flopped at Epsom last week. Paco Boy was only 4th behind Virtual in the Lock-in, but he hung badly that day, and his defeat was not down to his not getting the trip. I understand he had a physical problem, which has now been sorted out. So, he's a proper contender if you can forgive him for that run at Newbury. Perhaps the one horse that's coming here on a proper roll, though, is Main Aim, who did the job very takingly indeed at Haydock and has been supplemented by the Abdullah Sir Michael Stout team. A more proper leads the home team in the King's Stand after his impressive win in the Palace House at Newmarket. He's been pleasing Henry Candy since at home too. He could be the one to beat, but he faces by far his toughest opposition yet. Last year's Fleeting Spirit started the 15-8 favourite here and was beaten to 3rd place behind Equiano. But she was a sick filly after that, and her trainer Jeremy Nasida withdrew most of his runners later in the week at the meeting. If she's back in the sort of form she was when winning the Temple Stakes at Haydock last May, she must be considered. But the Aussies have won this 3 times in the past 6 years, and Scenic Blast has won 2 Grade 1s in his last 3 starts. The Lightning Stakes over this trip and the Newmarket Handicap over 6 furlongs, both at Flemington. His style of running is to finish with a real late charge, and he must be a good each-way bet here. The St James's Palace Stakes is next, and Delegator is on the comeback trail, ground permitting. He doesn't want it too fast after his flop on heavy going in the Irish Guineas. His second behind See the Stars in what looks a vintage Guineas at Newmarket shows he's a high-class colt. And Jimmy Fortune takes over from Jamie Spencer now, although quite what Jamie has done to deserve being jocked off is not clear to me. However, Guineas' 5th Master Craftsman improved from that to finish a long way in front of him in the Irish Guineas, and the ground seems to come alike to him. I'd prefer to be with the O'Brien colt, I think, after a fluent win, rather than with Delegator, who's lining up on the back of a bad defeat. Intense Focus, trained by Jim Bolger, could be a factor if the ground rides fast, while Carl Burke is bullish about the condition of Lord Shannakill. With 5 wins in the past decade or so, Aidan O'Brien is a trainer to follow in the Coventry Stakes. More about him in a moment, but Paul Cole has won it 3 times as well in the past, and there's a lot to like about the performance of No Hubris on his debut at York. I thought it was encouraging to see him find a bit more when asked to pick up in the closing stages. However, Beethoven in 3rd there has been beaten since in Ireland, and O'Brien should have a good line on No Hubris with Air Chief Marshal. Johnny Murtagh takes the mount. The man to follow this year, though, regarding the juveniles has been Richard Hannon, and Canford Cliffs could not have been more impressive when winning on his debut at Newbury by 7 lengths, and the time was only half a second slower than the smart 3-year-old Border Patrol, who carried £3 less an hour later. He looks the one to beat here, I think, although Extension, trained by Clive Cox, also has a rosy future, judged on his debut win at Goodwood. Last year's Ascot Stakes was won by Missoula, trained by Susie Smith, and the Lewis trainer brings her mare back to race here off a £2 lower mark, although she showed little on her reappearance. Cape Aramis, trained by Venetia Williams, fresh from a highly successful hurdling campaign, totally outclassed the opposition at York, and clearly his next run at Goodwood came too soon. He'll have a say, even off his new mark. Finally, Day 1 ends with the Windsor Castle Stakes, won a year ago by 100-to-1 shot Flashman's Papers. It just goes to show, if you like, how difficult this race is to sort out. Well, Strike the Tiger has come all the way from the States and is the winner of his only start at Churchill Downs. His charismatic trainer Wes Ward rates him pretty highly, and I reckon maybe the Stars and Stripes could be flying high above Royal Ascot after day one.